In this episode, we'll cover all things DARPA and discuss how the aerospace and defense industry collaborates with this innovation powerhouse. For those who don't know, DARPA stands for the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. To get us kicked off, we'll be recapping all the major events that happened during this month. On April 8th, 2024, a rare celestial event unfolded across North America as the moon passed between the Earth and the sun, casting a shadow on the Earth's surface and plunging parts of the continent into darkness. This phenomenon, known as a total solar eclipse, was a breathtaking display of nature's wonders. The path of totality, where the sun is completely obscured by the moon and stretched from Mexico through the United States and up to Canada. Cities along the path included Dallas, Indianapolis, Columbus, and Buffalo experienced several minutes of darkness in the middle of the day as the moon's shadow raced across the landscape. This was the first total solar eclipse in the continental US in 7 years. The last one occurred on August 21st, 2017. Before that, you must go back to February 26, 1979, and it will be 20 years until the next one, August 23rd, 2024. Rob, I was on a plane back from Dallas the day before the eclipse, and just let me say it was a madhouse in the DFW. They shut down, the hotels were booked up. Was it I-45 was just shut down. They did a cool job, which I thought. I think across the country they canceled school for that day for the eclipse. I thought that was cool to let the students get experience some real science that was going to occur, and I really appreciate how we as a country and the nerds come out when we had these type of things. You know what I'm saying? What were you doing during the eclipse, Rob?
Yeah, so I was actually at home with my family. So, we took our son outside, so let him see it. My parents are here, my wife was here, so we all took a pause just to look at this phenomenon that hasn't happened, like you said, in 7 years, and it's not going to happen for another 20 years. It was really cool to let him see that phenomenon and really just get to experience the moment.
As much as we are apart in this world, it's cool to see how some things just still bring us together, right? Particularly from a
Exactly.
science perspective, right? It's like some just a natural phenomenon that doesn't happen much that brings us together. I think that's always cool.
Yeah, exactly. I think it is really great to see, us as a community just come together and witness something that is breathtaking. Because it's an amazing event that doesn't happen a lot, but it really, has time to like bring this everyone to be still for a moment. All right, Dwayne. So now let's shift gears and start discussing this topic for the episode, which is everything DARPA, and combine it with all the advances happening in the space arena. Can you give the folks a quick explanation on what DARPA is?
Absolutely. DARPA is often hailed as the mad scientist of the Pentagon, right? It's been shaping the future of technology, particularly for the United States, for decades. It was established in the late 50s, 1958, in response to the great space race that was happening with the Soviet Union, United States. And its mission is clear: to prevent technological surprise and maintain the United States' technological superiority in defense and other applications. DARPA is actively involved in R&D of advanced materials, robotics, artificial intelligence, and quantum technologies, among others, right? Its ambitious technologies and projects push the boundaries of what's possible and have the potential to reshape the future of our national security, as well as warfare, and as well as from common good. A lot of people don't realize there's a lot of commercial applications come from that. And the most notable contribution was basically the creation of the internet, right? Nope, Al Gore didn't do it. It was before his time. DARPA was funded in the 60s, funded this research just called the ARPANET development, which basically was the precursor to what we call the modern internet, right? This groundbreaking project laid the foundation on how we connected across the world and how we live today. Other innovations credited to DARPA based on DARPA's research includes the first communication satellite, stealth technology, stealth aircraft, drones, which is very active in what we're doing. We just had a great discussion about autonomous flight, the driverless car, and the remote vacuum cleaner. So, Rob, why don't you dive into more of what DARPA is doing in the space arena?
Yeah, I mean, Dwayne, as you mentioned, the purpose of DARPA is to make pivotal investments in breakthrough technologies for national security. So DARPA's mission is to maintain that technology security of the U.S. military and prevent technological surprise from harming our national security by, sponsoring revolutionary and high payoff research, bridging that gap between the fundamental discoveries and their military use. And DARPA also has that strategic relationship with each of the defense agencies as the research helps quickly advance technology and systems that each will use in future missions. And I'm really excited to give folks a really deeper look behind the scenes of what's going on in the space realm that you might not know about.
That's awesome, Rob. So what are some potential applications for space vehicles that DARPA is working on?
Exploring the environments of other planets in space has really been a major initiative as scientists look to understand and identify other potentially habitable planets. So autonomous platforms really has been a breakthrough technology to explore those previously unknown areas, as well as enhance space travel repairs for astronauts. Some of these key capabilities they provide are really deep space exploration, in space surface samples collection, and also wireless onboard communication.
Yeah, that autonomous platforms, particularly when a astronaut has to do an evac type of ESOC type of mission in space, is really going to be helpful from a safety perspective, as well as helping them with overall habitats as you go out on those space missions. What are some important DARPA space programs in pursuit right now?
Really, three main programs come to mind when I'm discussing the next wave of space technology. One being the demonstration rocket for Agile Lunar Operations Program. So that's Draco, the program. In that program, NASA will work with the long-term partner DARPA to develop and demonstrate advanced nuclear thermal propulsion technology as soon as 2027. So that's right around the corner. Wow. And with the help of this new technology, astronauts could journey to and from deep space faster than ever. And that's going to be a major capability to prepare for crewed missions to Mars. And then understanding a nuclear thermal rocket allows for that faster transit time, reducing risk for astronauts. And that reducing transit time is really a key component for human missions to Mars, as longer trips require more supplies and more robust systems. And maturing that faster, more efficient transportation technology will also help NASA meet its moon to Mars objectives. So think, habitable planets on the moon, habitable planets on Mars, and future beyond is going to be really great. And on July 26, 2023, it was announced that Lockheed Martin had won a contract from DARPA to develop and demonstrate a nuclear powered spacecraft. So everything that the Draco program is doing, Lockheed is going to provide that for DARPA.
Yeah. So is that continuous building of what DARPA is bringing, is pushing the technology forward? I think anytime when I heard, when I looked at this and I researched it, right, I think about rocket motors, and at RTX, we're in the rocket motor business, right? And so it's always interesting to see what new technologies are going to occur, particularly with what's happening with how we give more VBO to those astronauts so we can have that fast time to get there, particularly when they're in a space environment, and using that nuclear thermal as a capability to get us there. That's really going to help with that transit time, and also help from a speed perspective and a power distribution perspective. So that's really cool to see. So what else is going on with DARPA in the space space?
Yeah, so the second actual program I want to highlight is the 10-year Lunar Architecture Capability Study. So that's the Luna 10 under DARPA. So in December 2023, DARPA selected 14 companies to participate in this 10-year Lunar Architectural Capability Study, which aims to help humanity extend its economic footprint into deep space. So to get to a turning point faster, Luna 10 is uniquely aimed to identify solutions that can enable multi-mission lunar systems. Also, really imagine a wireless power station that can also provide comms and navigations on its beam. So this is really great technology that's coming to fruition, throughout this 10-year Luna 10 capability study. And then to further expand on this, two further announcements that have been made since this broad program was introduced is on March 19, 2024. Northrop Grumman was selected by DARPA to further develop the concept of building a moon-based railroad network as part of the broader capability study. So this proposed rail system could help humanity set up a shop on the moon. So let's think, we always talk about, what is next for moon missions. This is really going to be the next step of moon missions. And in that, the envisioned lunar railroad network could transport humans, supplies, and resources for commercial ventures across the lunar surface, contributing to that space economy for the United States and also its international partners. In addition to that, on January 23rd, 2024, Nokia Bell Labs was selected by DARPA to design communication service infrastructure framework for the future lunar economy. And they're going to be responsible for recommending a reliable, high performance communications infrastructure. And it will also be closely tied with the other Lunar 10 companies to ensure that that infrastructure could be efficiently transported and built on a lunar surface, and that it will have that reliable power sources once installed. And those communications will be critical as virtually all use cases and applications require or benefit from that high throughput, low latency, and ultra reliable and scalable communication capabilities. And networks would allow astronauts to freely communicate directly with mission controls on Earth, and also networks would transmit video telemetry data from cameras and sensors to spread across the moon and integrate it into spacesuits, vehicles, structures, and other scientific experiments. And so really, ultimately, the networks would supply the connectivity necessary to control robots and automate dangerous tasks on the lunar surface. So everything that you could think about as far as capabilities to having a fully ecosystem ready available on the moon, that's coming in the next 10 years with this program.
Yeah, just to jump in there a little bit there, Rob. Like on the surface, I know we're all in that space, at least for our organization, is really trying to, when you talk about, sensing capability, communications capability, forwarding the missions of that happens on ground, on the moon, on surface, particularly those things, we are heavily engaged with our technology and our ability to go work with that. And actually, we work in some networking technologies and other opportunities within DARPA that will be assisting on both of these efforts in the Lunar 10 study. And so it's really cool. And I know it's a bunch of other organizations that's in this space that are in this space, but it's basically covering the entire space industry ecosystem that's engaged on this lunar capability study across the board. And you think about the future, and you don't hear about this, but again, it's here. DARPA is front and center, pushing the envelopes for the rest of us, giving us an avenue to go prove in and experiment, but also feeding that data back to NASA, feeding that data back to all the interested space parties to ensure that we're building capability further for the future as we go advance these missions that are lunar based. So that's pretty cool. You got another program of record to share?
And this will be the last one. I promise. But it was so much going on in space that I had to just delve down to just these three. But it's so much more that's going on. The last one I'll highlight is the novel orbital and moon manufacturing materials and mass efficient design. So NOMAD is the acronym. So this program aims to develop the foundations of building robust and precise structures in space. So the vision is to create a ferry of raw materials from Earth for in-orbit manufacturing. All that manufacturing will be done in orbital construction facilities, and then the results utilized in orbital applications. So the NOMAD program comprises of two technical areas. The first plan is to develop and demonstrate foundational materials, manufacturing processes, and designs to enable the in-orbit fabrication of robust, resilient, and high precision structures that will support future off-Earth space missions. And that second technical area will investigate the innovative designs that take advantage of that ability to manufacture in space, yet enable precise, mass-efficient future space structures with that withstand that maneuvers, eclipses, damage, and also the thermal cycles inherent to the space environment. So as you look to think about construction, out of Earth, this is going to be the program that people are going to look to as far as making sure that things are of the correct, mass efficient things like that to be constructed off Earth.
Man, that's cool. That's awesome.
So Dwayne, do you want to discuss how DARPA does business with the industry?
Sure, Rob. Absolutely. So, as you stated, right, there are tons of programs that's pushing the envelope of how we're future bases are going to be. DARPA's pushing industry into space base, right? And it's particularly in this, that whole industry. And so when you think about working with DARPA, you got to just first note that DARPA sets itself apart by taking with its willingness to take risk and pursue high risk, high reward projects that can't happen in a traditional government agency or even private sector, type environment because they're too risky. They are speculative, right? DARPA operates on a principle of fail fast and fail cheap, recognizing that failure is the inherent part of innovation and that those lessons learned from that failure are very important to add as you're adding and experimenting on these new technologies to push them forward. Doing business with DARPA isn't your typical government procurement process. Unlike traditional government contracts, DARPA projects are often high risk, high reward R&D type endeavors. Like you're dealing with cutting edge technologies and proving those technologies along that TRL scale. Basically, if you have a success from going from one to two, TRL one level to TRL two, that's a win on a DARPA side, or TRL one to TRL three, that's a win on the DARPA side. And just really taking those ideas that are at this primordial ooze state and just pushing them up the technical readiness level. And they're also push, unconventional sources on where they come to make sure that we are addressing not only our commercial concerns, but a lot of our national security challenges, right? Procurement process with DARPA typically begins with the agency issuing a broad agency announcement, a BAA, or a request for information, RFI, outlining the specific areas of interest and the needs and the period of performance, all that good stuff, right? And then those parties that are interested to let in on those BAs, RFIs, they could be either defense contractors, space contractors, research institutions, small businesses. They submit their proposals according with their innovative solution. And then DARPA takes those in, evaluates those proposals on a set criteria, sometimes technical merit, sometimes feasibility, sometimes impact, sometimes cost. It just depends. Sometimes speed, right? Those type of things happen. And unlike traditional contracts, it's about, again, agility, flexibility, and rapid prototyping. And the proposals receive that funding either through their government entity itself. They may receive grants, they might receive outright contracts, they might receive co-op or cooperative agreements where you're tag teaming and you're sharing budget, and you might have the risk of the budget where how much of your R&D you can bring, couple that with the R&D of another organization and the R&D of the DARPA agency, the function that's in the DARPA agency, and you're pushing that forward. So a lot going on. But another important thing is if you do business with them, right? Most of these programs, and not all, require some sort of security classification, right? So your business or your academic institutions or whoever's letting out to this opportunity has to be government certified, and it will be stated in the BA or RFI.
No, that's really amazing insights. And it also brings you the question. So, as agile and the technology changes, how quickly does DARPA adjust funding and things like that to accommodate, different shifts in priorities as they come up?
I've seen in my experience where DARPA turn off money immediately, 1 week, and change up the next. I've seen that happen that fast, right? And what we have to decide is at least from a business perspective, you got to decide from a month to month basis how we're getting there. Is this still viable? And then is this at the priority? And that's what that business development part where you have to continue to shape and cater and have that intimacy with DARPA and that customer agency within there to make sure, hey, are we still there? Is there still appetite for this? We got this research going, and when do they want to, end this project? When they foresee it coming, along with all the other impacts of other program of records as well. So it's really critical that once you either get into this pursuit that you're been awarded, that you continue those customer discussions, continue building that intimacy with the customer so you know that things change and they rapidly move. And so you got to make sure that you're hitting the milestones and actually sharing that, or really knowing and understanding that, hey, the interest in this project has gone down. We're going to move to a different technology and what have you. So that's important.
No, yeah, and I think I know firsthand, working with DARPA and working with others, it is a really collective agreement. And it's really good to know the back end of things as far as how quickly things shift and, shaping those priorities with the customers is really going to be key. And I know a lot of collaboration a lot goes on with the customer, and how you collaborate with other companies in the industry is going to be key going forward. Any other insights you want to share on that, Dwayne, before we?
No, I think we're good, my friend. I think we're good
Okay.
to move that forward.
Okay, and there's been insight there from a business standpoint, because working with DARPA and working with this program, it is critical for the advancement of our national security, but also critical for advancing the technology. So we really appreciate those insights.
Oh, anytime, anytime. So let's just wrap up today, right? We want to thank our audience for tuning in to Brothers in Aerospace and Defense.
Today we covered all things DARPA and how this agency is really creating a space for new programs of record and new technologies. Really, to summarize discussion, we cover the highlights of what happened in April, really mainly being the total solar eclipse that happened this year. Second point, how the space programs of DARPA are advancing, new technology going forward and creating that really good ecosystem outside of Earth, first being with the moon and also Mars. And then lastly, wrapped up from how business and industry partners actually partner with DARPA and how that business curtails into programs of record and how they move the technology advancements forward.
Yeah, some key takeaways that I think our audience should, think about and take with them is that DARPA is, particularly in the space space, DARPA is creating those industries that are going to happen in space or on planets or on ground on the moon, right? And so that is really, really cool. So you think about as they push the envelope for us to go create that, that's going to be some entrepreneurial opportunities for a thing. If you start thinking about, okay, so who's going to start building these construction opportunities and these construction sites in space so we can go, build a railroad to go on the moon, right? I think about how the waste and things like that's going to have to get picked up in space, and how all that's happening in there, how you think communications are going to have to occur, how we're going to have to deal with the habitat of bringing more humans out into space to do the construction, or is this going to be autonomous? And how we have robots and other things doing those roles and handling those jobs for us to go get done. So there is a lot of work that's happening, a lot of good stuff, a lot of good experimentations happen. So it's good for there. Another, and I think the most important thing from a personal development perspective or even interest perspective, for those, I want to say, super technical folks who are in those PhD programs or master's programs that are in advanced computing or advanced materials or all that pushing physics forward type, opportunities that you're in, even advanced math and those things. DARPA is needing the talent, right? And it's important that we, particularly us on the American side of soil, that are capable or that are U.S. citizens or can work with DARPA. There are opportunities for us there to take your research to new places and new levels. And DARPA is that, I want to say, petri dish of experimentation where you can take your research and develop that even further for a cause that's greater than itself. And that's always awesome. And another thing I always want us to leave with is how DARPA not only partners with industry, but also partners with all the research institutions and all the academic institutions in the world. I've seen at Tennessee State, that DARPA did some work there, even at HBCUs, how they done with HSI's institution, because DARPA believes that the talent and the technology and the skill set is everywhere. And they've done a great job of really partnering with those institutions and those our academic across the board. So as we look to the future, DARPA remains at the forefront of innovation, driving technological advancements that shape the aerospace and defense industry for years to come. From its humble beginnings to its current status as a catalyst for innovation, DARPA continues to push the boundaries of what's possible, ensuring the United States remains at the forefront of technological innovation and also our helping increase our national security. So on a personal note, so what's happening in your world, Rob? What's going on?
Yeah, so we just had this past weekend a party for my son's second birthday. So excited to, have him grow up in this world and see so many things and advance so greatly. We also found out that we're having a baby girl as the new addition, joining our family in the next few weeks. So there's two really great milestones that have really crossed my way over the past few weeks in April. So which is, honestly amazing to see this growing family that we have right now.
That is so cool, Rob. I can't even top that, brother. I can't. But I think what I've been working on lately is my newsletter, The Storyteller, at behivestoryteller.com. I'm really pushing the leadership journeys, and we're focusing on mastery series. We're calling it a master class, and it's actually helping our folks develop a leadership acumen, right? And I'm really excited about sharing and bringing some techniques and research I've done over the years and what's happening in the industry, bringing all those readings together to see how people can start developing their mastery of their leadership acumen, and really, really excited to bring that to the world.
Yeah, so we'll definitely include our newsletters in the show notes below.
Yep.
So definitely, if you haven't already subscribe to both our newsletters. It's really amazing things that we're both doing in this area. And Dwayne, thank you for this master class that you're embarking on, because it is well needed for us.
So we hope you enjoyed this exploration of the industry from both a technical and business perspective.
Remember to really subscribe, rate, and share this podcast with your friends and colleagues.
And stay tuned for more inspiring stories, groundbreaking technology, and business insights in future episodes.